and use body language as well, gestures, right?
Right.
So your students will also understand what to do initially till they're more comfortable with the language, till it becomes second nature, right? Which
Right.
takes some time.
Absolutely. I think in the starting of the class can you give some strategies that help students like think in French rather than translating from their, from their native voice? Usually, whenever we start learning any new language, so we always try to, to convert to translate the language from our native language to the another third language. So, do you have some strategies around that?
Yeah, definitely. So the first thing that you can do as an instructor is that you tell your students, please don't translate, right? For example, if I have to show you a phone, right? Un portable, I'll show you that. I'll show you
Hmm.
the object, right?
Right.
If I don't have it in class, I can show you a picture,
Hmm.
or I can, draw it on the board, or I can act it
Right.
out, whatever it is, right? So that's the best way to do it. Or link a concept to the sound and the word, and that's how you will remember it. Because otherwise, what's going to happen is if you're going to think in English first, then convert it to French, it's going to take too long,
Absolutely.
right? So if you see a bottle, if you have a bottle in class, you can show them, "Sechin buttai," right?
Hmm.
It's a bottle. And this is how they're going to remember it. So that's one,
Right.
visualization.
Right.
Yeah, and concept. The other thing is context-based learning, right? Because if you're learning vocabulary, for example, and if I say, bus, moon, chair, how does that make sense, right? You have to learn it in context,
Right.
right? Like, for example, somebody was transporting a chair or using a bus in the moonlight. I don't know, right? You need a context. Otherwise, it's all random. What are you going to do
Very
with
random.
this
Yes.
word or with these words, right? So, context-based learning, I think, is very important. Also, when you're being able to think in French,
Right.
and you have to encourage your students, I believe, to practice active listening and immersion.
Okay.
So only when they constantly practice
Hmm.
French, that's how thinking in French will happen,
Hmm.
right?
Correct.
And apart from that, at the A1, A2 level, this is a little harder, but from the B1 level onward, right?
Hmm.
You can encourage your students to also use monolingual dictionaries. Like you have Le Petit Robert, for example,
Hmm.
right? So it's not Petit, it's not a small book at all. It's a big dictionary, but it's really helpful because it gives you the meaning of these words in that particular language, in French.
Got it.
And you need that sort of push to encourage yourself also to learn, as a learner.
Correct, ma'am.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So apart from that, you can also work on mental mapping and conceptual thinking,
Hmm.
right? So mental mapping is where you are creating mind maps with French words relating to a particular concept. Like, for example, if you're talking about family, right? It could
Right.
be all the family members. It could be their ages. It could
Hmm.
be, the activities that they do. It depends. Yeah.
Hmm.
But no, normally when you say family, you're going to think of all of these ideas.
Correct. Like mère, père, frère.
Yes, exactly. Mostly that vocab, but also the activities that they do or what they
Hmm.
like, what they
Maybe
dislike,
the
when is their
adjectives linked
birthday.
with the
Yes.
family member.
Yeah. How are they? Yeah. So, it's really up to you as an educator to guide your students to do the work. But again, it's up to the students also to, figure out what learning concept or idea works best for them.
Absolutely.
Right? Because if I'm the kind of learner who's very auditive, I want to listen and I want to practice saying that sound so that I'm linking it to a concept, then I have to keep practicing that.
Hmm.
Right? If I'm more of a visual learner, if I see it once, maybe I'll remember it, then I have to look at more pictures with this concept or, watch movies or whatever it is, right? So it really depends on the learner. So first, I think as an educator, figure out what kind of a learning environment your learners need.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And as a learner, you can encourage them also to figure out their learning profile, like what they are best at.
And ma'am, as we discussed about the dictionary and all, so I just wanted to ask, like, for the beginners level, like A1, A2 level, uh, I have faced challenge, like while training while training my students, how to build up their vocabulary. I usually suggest them to make a small notebook, a vocabulary notebook, and then whatever word they come across every single day, they can just note it down, and then they can just go through those words again and again whenever they get time. Now, is there any other successful maybe strategy that you have used maybe, or maybe you came across that teachers can use maybe?
Yeah, so when you ask them to note down words, right? You go one step further than that. So tell
Absolutely.
them to think of ideas or situations where they can use these words in context. You can
Hmm.
ask them to write a small story, or if it is about nationalities, maybe tell them to imagine a workplace or a classroom situation where you have nationalities, different nationalities, people from different nationalities coming in,
Right.
right? So you're getting them to use words or verbs or adjectives, probably, right?
Hmm.
So you figure out, you create concepts so that they can use these particular words that they've learned in that context.
Absolutely. No, this is a wonderful idea, I think. I mean, if they're learning, let's say, 5 words in a day,
Yeah,
and if they can create a short paragraph using those 5 words in French, I think then the usage is complete. I think then it will stay in their mind for longer duration.
correct,
Absolutely.
correct.
Right. Now, ma'am, we will come to the next section of the podcast, that is going to be as a DELF examiner. So insights as a DELF examiner, and like giving insights to the teachers how they can become a DELF examiner. Ma'am, what do you think? What are the best strategies I mean, what are the best options for the teachers to become? I mean, I know one is that the teachers can become a DELF examiner. Apart from that, teachers are having a lot of like trainings that are going on now, like training of DELF, and also like trainings organized by Civil Arm Française, if I'm not wrong. So I just wanted to know what is the right pathway to enable all these options.
Right. So generally, most of our states have an organization known as the Alliance Française.
Right.
Right. Apart from that, in Delhi, you have Institut Français en Inde. But I think the Alliance Française, apart from the Institute, they are centers for the DELF exam.
Okay.
These are exams that are, conducted by the Ministry of Education in France, by the French Education Ministry.
Right.
And these centers are authorized centers in India to be able to conduct these exams,
Hmm.
which means that generally they also have trainers who train candidates, who train teachers to become their examiners. So I'd suggest checking with your closest Alliance Française or checking with the Institut Français en Inde where the training is going to happen, and then enroll for it. Again, they have their own qualifications and guidelines and do's and don'ts, for the training. So
Right.
you approach them and they'll give you the correct information.
Right. So, ma'am, these are paid programs, or it is available to the, I mean, it is assessed by the teachers like for the free. I mean,
Usually, I think it's free, but I'm not very sure how it works. This is something you will have to check with that particular center,
okay. Okay.
right? So it'll be best to check with the local Alliance Française if they have these DELF formation for the habilitation, that's what it's called,
Right.
or with the IFI, which is Institut Français en Inde. But I think it's usually the trainers at the Alliance which do it. So you can check with them.
Got it, ma'am. Can prepare themselves to be a DELF examiner.
Right. So the first thing is you can consult the website of FEE, which is France Éducation Nationale, right? International, I'm sorry, France Éducation Internationale. So there you have different DELF formats from the A1 level to the C2 level. That's known as DELF. Okay, DELF is A1, A2, B1, B2, and DELF is C1, C2. So the first thing is, even before becoming an examiner, you can always take a look at the DELF structure, the format. You have 4 competencies that are tested, which is listening, reading, speaking, and writing. Now, level-wise, the skills differ. You have grids for evaluation as well for the production écrite and oral.
Right.
Which is the writing and the speaking part. So you can take a look at what is expected to at least have an idea as to what it is. Another important document that you can consult is the CECRL. So basically, that's the Common European Framework for the references for languages. So you can take a look at that and see what each level requires you to have. At A1, you need these things. At A2, you need these competences, right? And so on and so forth. So you need to be familiar with these structures so that it'll be easier in the training for you.
Got it. And then what is the minimum level required to become a DELF examiner in India?
So I think it's a B2 or a C1, C2 level. And again, this is something you will have to check with the Alliance that you can work with.
Got it.
Also, I think a master's in French or a PhD is counted as well. So you have to really check with the Alliance what the latest rule is.
Got it. And ma'am, apart from DELF examiner, being a DELF examiner, what other options do teachers have? Do we have as a French teacher?
Right. So in terms of if you're talking about additional certifications, if you have usually a B2 or a C1 level, you can always apply for a master's level and then eventually a PhD in the French language or Francophone studies, linguistics. Right. You can also apply for a master's in applied linguistics. That might help if linguistics is your domain. If not, you have FOS, right, which is Français Objectif Spécifique. So you have, for example, business French or French for medical purposes, French for diplomats. You can have these certifications as well. Apart from that, online, you have a lot of tools for digital pedagogy, right? How do you use different digital tools? How do you use different gamification apps? How do you use learning apps, educational apps, right? You can also work on instructional course design. I mean, if you want to create content, if you want to create courses which are interesting for your students, you can explore this.
So, ma'am, is there any platform for all of this?
So I guess you can just do a quick Google search and see where you can get info. You have courses available in India and abroad.
Okay.
Right. Apart from that, keep an eye out for the correspondence that comes through from IFI, Institut Français en Inde, or your local alliance as well. Because sometimes, when they have professional development courses or conferences, webinars, which are usually free of cost, they put out this information. Right. If it's an online webinar, why not? Just attend it and see how it goes for you. Maybe there's something new that, you have as a takeaway.
Correct.
Of course, you have certain other trainings which are paid for, like BELC, BELC. You have Université Régionale Pédagogique. So again, this is usually organized, by the IFI with any college or school or alliance in India. So you have to really keep an eye out for this news, right?
Got it. On the website of IFI.
Yes.
Okay.
And again, feel free to register, for webinars which are conducted by book houses, publication houses like CLE, International. They have certain webinars. Then you have also, I think, Francophone organizations, right? Do conduct training. So feel free to register for all of this and learn as much as you can as an educator as well.
Absolutely. I'm sure this will be a lot more helpful for the teachers. And ma'am, what are the common pitfalls students face in the DELF exam according to you, and how can teachers help them overcome these?
Right. So the first thing is sometimes students are not aware of what the DELF is, or they lack familiarity with the exam format. Now, it's an exam. You need to know, what is your time limit like? What are the competencies they're testing, right? So it's not just about having language skills. It's also about having speed and accuracy at the same time. Right. So the more practice you do with past papers, or not past papers, but sample papers, or sample paper exam preparation booklets or books, work on those. It'll make you more familiar with the exam format.
Absolutely.
Right. The other thing that I've noticed, at least in my experience as a DELF examiner since 2016, is that a lot of people tend to translate. So in the exam, avoid that by already, practicing whatever you think might be relevant. Do this outside of obviously the exam preparation time, right? For example, in the A1, A2 levels, the first question for the oral part is present yourself, right? In the A1 level, it's going to be a very simple presentation about yourself, like your nationality, you're using the present tense, maybe a little bit of the past, but not so much the future, right? Or maybe just a little, like what you're going to do next weekend, for example.
Right.
But if you're in the A2 level, then you've learned more tenses, then use the past, present, future. Right? Don't limit yourself to this is me, this is my family, this is my job, because this is A1. You've already heard it. In A2, what are we looking for? More variety, different sentence structures, right? Focus on this. Practice this at home, because then that way you don't have to, spend time doing this in the exam hall where you have just about 10 minutes of prep time or something like that, right? So practice, prior to actually going to the exam hall.
Hmm.
So apart from that, a lot of us tend to underestimate listening comprehension. Listening is not a skill that you can develop in one day, right? Grammar is something maybe that you can learn in like 2-3 hours, but listening takes consistent practice.
True.
So does speaking. So try to listen to the radio, French radio. Try to listen to the piece, the audio files in your textbook.
Correct.
Listen, repeat. Practice your pronunciation that way. Another thing, like I said earlier, is time management, right? You have to be really careful about your time management because it's an exam. You have to be good at that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And when your writing has to be coherent and organized, not haphazard, which means one needs to use proper connectors, proper vocab, proper tournure de phrase, the turn of phrase, right? Required for that particular level. Apart from that, using a wide variety of vocabulary as well as expressions depending on your level, that's important. That's pretty much it, I guess.
Now, I wanted to know, how can teachers like explore, more like corporate trainings or maybe other roles like different, other foreign countries or maybe embassy, so to expand their career?
If you want to be a corporate trainer, you need to know what that corporate that has approached you or that you are approaching needs. Right? You need to be able to identify the needs of that corporate because not all corporates are the same. You have banking firms, then you have IT firms, right? You have firms which work with farmers, for example, or the NGO sector. You really need to know what the organizational goal is, right? You need to get that info from them, and then you can design your courses accordingly, right? If you are focused on business material, for example, right? Then your vocabulary, your grammar, email etiquette, all of that has to be that business focus. Apart from that, you have to see who is the person or which is the nationality of that person this particular batch is going to interact with from that corporate. Are there clients seated in France? Are there clients seated in Africa, Francophone Africa or Canada, right? And then you train them accordingly, which means you have to be good at all this vocab as well and the cultural knowledge, which takes time, right? So you practice this and I think it'll be fine. Just give it a shot anyway, how it goes. Right. And then reach out to corporate clients, maybe create a good LinkedIn profile where the companies recruit you or they at least reach out to you, right? And focus on your soft skills as well because you want to come across as somebody who knows the language.
Absolutely.
Right. So you have to really work on that. And when you're talking about embassy roles or diplomatic opportunities, I would say, look at the website of the French Embassy in India, Institut Français in India, and the Alliance Française in India. Because here they put out job offers. You can always explore. They do put out these job offers also on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. So have an account on all of these channels, look at it and apply. Right. If you think this particular role might interest you, give it a shot because you never know if you get selected.
Absolutely.
Right? And I think networking is also important. So feel free to network, not just with, fellow teachers of French, explore other domains, foreign language, other foreign language experts. Just basically, figure out in your community who you can reach out to, right? Because a lot of our work actually happens with contacts.
Absolutely.
And it's not just for French teachers, in all domains possible.
For all the languages, in fact.
Yes. Right. Yeah. And not just languages. Even if I have to go to a doctor and you're looking for one, I'll say, go to my doctor. He's really good, right? Because Absolutely. It's all word of mouth as well. So you have to be able to network. You have to be able to make sure that the other person knows what you're good at, right? You're going to sell your strengths. You're going to market your strengths.
Right. Absolutely correct, ma'am. And ma'am, are there any other additional qualifications that can help teachers, to stand out on the field?
Any other qualifications? I think that's pretty much it. Getting a good, diploma, which is basically the DELF for the DELF, right? Having a B2, C1, yeah. Apart from that, you have the master's training courses. Those are full-time generally. Sometimes you can have part-time as well. You have PhD programs. You have all of these webinars, small workshops, right? University trainings. You can take a look at, just Google it, look for French teacher trainings and you'll see a whole bunch of it.
So all of that will really help and
Definitely.
help the teachers stand out in the field.
Yes, definitely. And also, it depends really on your sincerity, how sincere you are with your work, right?
Hmm.
Because good work is never unnoticed, it always goes noticed, right?
Absolutely.
So, the more you are able to really transmit sincerely what you want to your students, I think nothing beats that. And the students can really tell, that you're being sincere, that you have put in that effort, because that also motivates them to do well.
Correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Nobody
Absolutely.
wants to disappoint a good teacher and be the bad student, right? So
True.
you have to really see how it works.
And my last question that I have is there any advice that you would like to give for aspiring French educators looking to specialize in the exam preparation or maybe professional training?
Yeah, just keep your eye out basically for any training opportunities that come up
Hmm.
on the websites of the French Embassy, of the Institut Français en Inde, and the Alliance Française, which is closest to your place.
Yes.
Apart from that, you can always take a look at the courses that are offered in France, because you have FLE, which is a master FLE. Basically, that's French Français langue étrangère, right?
Hmm.
So French is a foreign language. So here you are specifically taught how to teach French as a foreign language, not as a second language, but a foreign language.
Right.
So this might help. I mean, if you have the resources and the motivation to go to France and learn, why not? Some of them, some of these universities also do offer distance learning courses. So you can take a look at that. There's also another institute called Cavilam in Vichy. So you can also look at that. They keep having these teacher training programs.
Hmm.
They may have free MOOCs, but I'm not very sure of that right now. But sometimes they do, right? But
But
if
do
you
you
want a
think those,
certificate,
but do you
if you
think
want a
those,
certificate, you may have to pay. But
right.
sometimes the training itself is free. So it depends on what your goal is, right? Do you want the certification? Do you want the knowledge, or you want both, right? Then you have to take a call.
But according to you, are those paid workshops or are those paid trainings like worth it?
Yeah, they're definitely worth it because you're learning something new. But again, it depends on your goal, right? Is it just learning? Is it refreshing what you're doing?
Hmm.
Or is it starting out from scratch? So it's up to you, right? The educator, because I don't know the audience at the moment. You're going to have all sorts of audience members,
Absolutely.
right? So I can't really pinpoint and say, yeah, this is going to be worth it or it's not. You have to really see
Hmm.
what the course module outline is like, and you have to
Right.
see what you know and what you don't know.
Very true. And ma'am, according to you, what is the like? I mean, a lot of teachers must be having this type of question because it just came into my mind also. What is the earning potential as a French language trainer? Even if let's say I'm having like around 5 years of experience, and like I do all these trainings and I upgrade myself every year. Is there any cap on the earning potential, and what is the range a teacher can earn by becoming a French language teacher?
Right. So generally, French language teachers are in demand right now. So at least from the information that I have, there is a huge scope, right, for French language teachers in India, because there's really a dearth of us. There's not
Right.
many people who are very qualified and good at what they do.
Right.
So French language teachers are in demand for sure. The earning potential really depends on the kind of organization that you are applying to, right? Is it an Alliance Française? Is it a school, college? Is it corporate trainings? Are you opening your own tuition center, for example? It really depends. So you'll have to really do a little bit of research, based on your city, for the market price of what the others are offering,
Right.
and try to keep it in the same range, right?
Hmm.
Apart from that, if you're looking at foreign clients, then you can maybe quote additionally something extra, right? Because you're working at their convenience, at their hours.
True.
Yeah. So you really see how it's done. But really, as to a cap on the earning potential, I don't think there is. So you have to see if you want to do individual classes, one-on-one, group classes, small groups, corporate trainings, workshops. It really depends.
A minimum, what do you think? Like how much a person can earn? Like
So maybe a starting range would be like 3-4 lakhs, and then it will go up, right? But again, you'll have to see whether this is your only source of income, or how you want to do it. Are you supplementing another source of income using French as teaching options? It
Right.
really depends. Yeah, because it's very situational and circumstantial. So I can't really pinpoint and say, this is the amount.
And do you have any idea like the French teachers, the opportunities for the French teachers outside India, like Dubai or maybe Canada or maybe other.
Yes, you have a lot of opportunities which come to you from anywhere in the world. So
Hmm.
if you are willing to take it, depending on whatever your situation is at that moment, feel free.
Absolutely. And I think outside India, there are a lot of opportunities and very well paying opportunities, if I'm not wrong, as a French
Yes, for
teacher.
sure. Because again, good French language teachers will always be in demand, right? People
Hmm.
want to learn a new language.
Absolutely. Absolutely correct. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much for your time. So that's all for the day. And I'm sure teachers, French language educators will be benefiting a lot from our discussion. And thank you so much for being on this podcast. And thank you so much for sharing your insights.